Mr. Solomon, I think you are not unmuted. Even the host is not unmuted.
The program?
Are you unmuted now? Mr. Ram is not unmuted. I have unmuted immediately, but others have not, except Mr. Ram Arun. I think Mr.
The Southern India. Ladies, a panel of and industrialists to ensure that I would like to request Mr. A.R.M. Arun, President, Southern India Chamber and Industry. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Am I audible? Yeah, you got cut off.
Am I audible?
Your voice is breaking.
Lots of breaks.
Okay.
Sure.
Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
We have to mute our.
Can I? Okay, all right. Mr. Krishnamurthy and Mr. Ram, can you also hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner. Mr. N. Ram, Director, The Hindu Group. Mr. V. N. Shivashankar, Vice President, SICCI. The chairs of each of SICCI's sectoral committees presenting today. Special invitees, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Wishing you all a very good evening. On behalf of I take great pleasure in welcoming you to this important program. Important from 2 points of view. The first is realizing the importance of an election manifesto in terms of choosing the right political party to govern our society, which certainly has an impact on how industry performs as well as economy develops. And important secondly, because today's event is the first initiative of its kind by any chamber being done for the society at large. If you were to look at what a manifesto is, according to the Webster's Dictionary, a manifesto is a published declaration of intentions, motives, or views of an issuer, be it an individual, group, political party, or government. The word manifesto is derived from the manifesto, itself derived from the Latin word manifestum, which means clear or conspicuous. The election states that the election manifesto normally contains the declared ideology of the political party concerned in general and its policies and programs for the people at large. It serves as a reference document or benchmark for the public to get what political party stands for. By comparing the ideologies, policies, and programs of the political parties, electors can decide which party they should vote for to meet their expectations and aspirations. Election manifestos are generally political parties keeping an eye on forthcoming elections. Manifestos are generally well published, well publicized. If we are to look at the global practice, the United States, for example, the nature of political party platforms is policy-based, generally covering economic policy, foreign policy, healthcare, governance, environmental issues, immigration, etc. These offer specific benefits, but outline plans and policies that would benefit large sectors of the population. In West European countries, on the other hand, manifestos tend to mention more concrete policy choices along with their budgetary implications. Some add financial paragraphs to their manifestos, which may be submitted to a court audit, which in turn calculates how realistic each manifesto is. In Bhutan and Mexico, electoral authorities have power to have manifestos vet, have inappropriate content removed. If we had to look at what with manifestos, the fundamental issue with an election manifesto across the political spectrum is that it does not contain adequate details of the manner in which the policy would be implemented, the source of funds for such implementation, and other details of the implementation. In short, the various schemes promised were often bereft of any particulars. Sometimes manifestos also tend to have offensive campaign material which is inserted to stir a particular feeling or inclination. Also, were elected either on the strength of their manifestos or otherwise could indefinitely delay or even outright reject manifesto policies which were popular with the public at the time of the elections. Political parties could do this simply because there is no enforcement mechanism, parameter or guideline in respect of election manifestos, whether in the Representation of People's Act of 1951 or as set by the Election Commission, despite directions by the Supreme Court of India. Mandate from the Election Commission of India, the Election Commission in 2014 came up with generic guidelines stating that the election manifesto is to be in compliance with the Model Code of Conduct. The promises made should not vitiate the purity of elections, and that, quote, in the interest of transparency, level playing field, and credibility of promises, it is expected that manifestos also reflect the rationale for the promises and broadly indicate the ways and means to meet the financial requirements for it, unquote. Before the 2019 elections, the Commission of India released an addition to its direction stating that manifestos should not be released 48 hours before each polling phase. Look at the proposed solutions going forward. A good solution first would be for each election manifesto to be screened by the Election Commission of India before it is released. Second, a mechanism can be enabled to enforce an election manifesto of a ruling party in case the party promising them is not implementing such poll promises. A practical solution would also be to leave it to the political parties to regulate its own election manifesto and be critiqued by academicians, public bodies, media, and society. Hence, SICCI has embarked on this unique initiative to recommend the key issues that need to be addressed along with the possible solutions. Would like to appreciate the efforts of SICCI Secretary Mr. Vinod Solomon in coming up with this worthwhile initiative for society. The sectors among industry that we have heard today include manufacturing, healthcare, taxation, banking, financial services, education, technology, MSME, infrastructure, among others as well. We have also chosen to focus on the global Tamil diaspora outreach as we recently hosted the global Yadumure, which was inaugurated by our Honorable Chief Minister. We included this diaspora outreach considering the rich potential that it has the capability to bring in. What's next? Compiling the suggestions and recommendations that come out of today's event, we would then be making the necessary effort to meet the key political parties in the coming weeks, share this report, and brief them accordingly. We believe that the political parties will consider these suggestions and include them in their own manifesto in the interest of industry and the economy. We hence request our participants to share your valuable suggestions with us. This would certainly assist in preparing a holistic report. It is our hope that this will in turn deliver value to industry as well as. In closing, would like to again appreciate your joining us today and wishing you safe times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arun, for your address. I would now like to request Mr. N. Ram, Director, the Hindu Group, to deliver the keynote address. Sir, please.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to place my remarks, some suggestions before you on this excellent initiative. I think the question may arise, what has SICCI, a long-established Chamber of Commerce and Industry, have to do with elections? And I was told by the President SICCI president, that some questions have arisen by a few. Why do you want to get involved in elections? And I think I want to speak to that at the outset so that we have clarity on what is being attempted here. And of course, we have a very distinguished former chief election commissioner to weigh in with all his experience and wisdom gained over years in this respect. But my thinking is, unfortunately, politics has got a bad name in some quarters. Not that all of it is undeserved, but because there is corruption, there is misuse of money power, lies are put out, fake news, sometimes vilification, toxic inputs, and so on. But all said and done, the democratic process has to be given higher priority. And as for elections, we are fortunate that our constitution makers had the wisdom and the foresight to provide for an arrangement in the constitution itself that prevents the kind of mess that we have witnessed in the United States recently, because they do not have an election commission of the United States. That goes back to history. I don't want to go into it. The Electoral College, which is now much criticized, and it's caused so much confusion about who will win. And even if you win, the legislators, in some cases, legislatures have the authority apparently to direct. A candidate may have won a state, but the electors could make another kind of decision. It's not going to happen, fortunately, but still, enormous confusion has been created in the United States. I don't want to go into the details. And President Trump, the man there, is refusing to accept defeat. This brings us to the role played by the Election Commission and vis-a-vis election manifestos, which my friend Arun very clearly, he provided a perspective on this, why manifestos have to be taken seriously, why they are relevant, and why you have to go into details, including ways and means to realize these objectives. Of course, there will be a gap between promise and performance and fulfillment, but we have seen in recent times some election manifestos have, for good or bad, the promises have actually been been delivered. I don't want to go into excessive detail, but on citizenship and so on, I'm not happy with what has happened. But you can see that the election manifestos provide insight, information, and even you can predict reading them what is going to happen, or at least looking back, you can see a thread connecting election manifestos with what the current status. So they are very, very important. And the answer to the question, should SICCI get involved or any chamber get involved with election manifestos and political parties, is take election manifestos seriously, get the people who do election manifestos to take them more seriously, be more transparent, honest, and work hard on them. I'll give you just one example from my own experience in this respect. In the 1990s, a book came out on how India lost a great deal by not having a law requiring all children, even of primary school going age, to be in school. They were part of the labor force. A book by a political scientist called Myron Wiener, which was very influential. Following that, some of us, including me, we approached political parties to at least commit themselves to making education, primary education, free and compulsory. And some of them agreed, some of them did not. I'm claiming that this is what made India move in that direction, but this is a way of raising awareness that put it in your election manifestos. If you don't put it, tell me why you cannot agree to this. A simple thing that most countries have done all over the world. Today, of course, it's part of the constitution itself. Coming to the topics here, I don't want to go into excessive detail. There are specialists who are going to speak on it. But I had conversations with Mr. Arun and also with Dr. A.C. Muthaya on what needs to be done in Tamil Nadu I'll make a few points very, very quickly. I think I have about, in all, about 15 minutes. That's what we agreed. And I'll try to present it within that framework. Already 5 minutes have gone. Now let's start with the latest findings of India's today's State of the State survey. I know that SICCI, in its presentation to Piyush Goyal, has mentioned this, that don't go just by rankings, see what they actually do. And I'm in full agreement with that approach, that don't be obsessed with these rankings, because we get different kinds of rankings. There may also be lobbying by states to get in and so on. But rankings nevertheless give you a pretty good picture of what is the perception from outside, whatever be the reality. And here we note that Tamil Nadu, for the last 3 years, has been adjudged to be the state that has done the best performing state overall. This comes out in the India Today's latest survey. Tamil Nadu scores top with respect to overall performance among big states. We have to qualify it, not small states as Goa, and also with respect to inclusive development. And going into some of the particulars, you find that it does reasonably well, pretty well in infrastructure, according to this second ranking. The economy is third ranked state, and so on. You can look it up yourself. Cleanliness, number 3, which surprises me because I didn't think we ranked so high with respect to cleanliness. Health, number 3. Kerala, of course, number 1. Our performance is mediocre according to this ranking in the fields of environment, pretty bad, education and agriculture, not good at all. And appalling, the ranking says, in the field of governance. How all this comes together is another matter, but these are the rankings. So you're talking about a state which is perceived to be right up there in comparison with other states. This is perception, and to some extent, I think it reflects reality. And if you're not happy with some of these rankings, imagine how much worse the others are, and how much room there is for improvement. As for the specific demands, I got this list here, or suggestions you made, recommendations actually. The export desk, establish export promotion desk in all states jointly with the regional chambers of commerce. I think it's a very good idea. I'm not in agreement with the second point there. It says whatever sold in India should be mandated to be made in India. Make in India is a good thing, but in today's day and age, I think international trade is very, very important. And while you'll do your best to make in India, it's not possible to enforce it in toto because there are other arrangements. I don't want to go into details, but and so on. Purchase preference, yes, I think it's a very good idea, and so on. The other points that I discussed with Dr. A.C. Muthaya, actually some of his suggestions, which I totally agree with. One is, I think, the idea of guidance cells, that large industries should have guidance cells depending on the size of the industry, and that cell has to be chaired seriously, either by the Minister for Industries or by the Chief Secretary or the Industry Secretary, depending on the size of the industry. And I think large investments would be required. So TIDCO sometimes makes investments, and I think one of the concerns of chambers and also industrialists is that TIDCO, once it gets in, does not exit even after the industry matures. So I think the demand, the expectation from industry, large industries is, yes, TIDCO's support is very important, but when the industry matures, please let us handle it ourselves. This is something that has come up as a demand. As for micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs as they are called, they must be recognized to be the backbone of development. And it is clear that even before the pandemic, many were suffering from working capital, funding issues and capital financing issues. And numerous conditions, bureaucratic conditions are imposed, I'm told, and banks are not particularly helpful to the sector. So the suggestion that I learned from Dr. Mutaya, which I totally agree with, is the Tamil Nadu Industrial Investment Corporation, TIIC, I think has a very small operation now, is a small player, but it can raise funds from banks without imposing these bureaucratic conditions, and it can provide guarantees, what is called credit enhancement, and it can make these arrangements with banks and really help these small players and medium players to to overcome this problem, say with a working capital funding support of 5 crores or something like that. So I think this is going to be important, and we have to remove the bureaucratic obstacles. And I think all political parties, I think, will agree with it, at least on paper, and make a serious commitment on this point. Then as for small-scale industries, I think the well-known idea of plug and play, the Software and Technology Parks of India, STPI, is already doing it, and there are many units small units that benefit from this, but this has to be scaled up, and I think it should have to be taken up as a major demand. And SIPCOT, I think, should plan for this. This, I think, is another demand that should find widespread support from political parties. And as for the other idea that Dr. Mutaya has been championing for a long time, cluster concepts. And China has developed this in a big way. And I don't know how many hundreds of clusters it has, but it's a very good way of natural clusters form. But it needs support from the state as well as other players, other stakeholders. You have leather industry clustered in Ranipet, Hosiery. Tirupur has become internationally famous for what it's done in the field of hosiery. I think water treatment plants, discharge facilities, and so on. We also have traditional clusters, saris in Kanchipuram, the handloom sari industry in Chettinad and other places. You could do it for toys. Karnataka has some of that. And I think base needs, including uninterrupted power and all that, these have to be guaranteed. So the idea of clusters, which form naturally, but we have to support it. You can't leave it entirely to the natural process. I think this is important. There are many such excellent suggestions that have come. The other point I want to make is, when you talk about labor reforms, I think employment is very important. And trade unions have to be recognized. You've seen what happened when a law was rushed through under the pretext of the pandemic at the central level, and what a lot of unease and agitation and anger there is in Delhi. They can't chase those farmers away, those representatives away, and the central government as well as other governments have to now negotiate with these unions representing farm workers and small farmers the law is already there, and I think there's no end in sight yet. So deal with it properly in time. Don't rush through something. Don't do a coup d'etat in terms of policy. Consult all the stakeholders. It may take time, but if you think you can, cut corners and just your majority just legislate, do this or that, I think it won't work, and it will not work with regard to well-organized labor. It has to be fair, but also I think these discussions will help you find a way forward on these issues. Environment is important. Education is important. And I said Tamil Nadu, there are lots of concerns. We used to think that old Madras state was ahead in the field of education. It is no longer true today. Overall, according to these rankings, according to these surveys, and according to external perceptions, you got to, and those who measure learning outcomes, the surveys, rural Tamil Nadu does not come out very well. We do much better in public health, in population, in managing what we call family planning of and so on. But we do not do very well in the field of education, and we do not do well at all in the field of environment, where Kerala leads, is far ahead in both in health as well as this. So these gaps have to be identified, and I'm glad that SICCI is not just concerned with the interests it represents. It's interested in education. It's interested in why Chennai gets flooded, these encroachments, why watersheds are being badly treated over the last several years, regardless of who's in power, and so on. These are large issues that have to be discussed. But for now, you must, from these discussions, I hope certain common points will emerge, certain priorities will emerge, which SICCI can then present to all political parties without distinction. Whatever you think of that party, go to every party that matters, and the election commissions can be a guide. Its website can guide you to that, or you can consult people who know about this. So go to all those parties, if possible, call on them, or do virtual meetings with them, demand time from them, and present these, and see whether they are willing to reflect this in their election manifestos. I think it's an excellent project. We shouldn't get distracted by people who are cynical about politics or elections. So that's all I wanted to say, and I hope we can learn a lot more about this from the distinguished speaker who will follow me, Mr. Krishnamurthy. Thank you.
Unmuted. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun and Mr. Ram, for this excellent opportunity to talk to you all on the importance of manifestos in an election. Mr. Ram has really made some thought-provoking suggestions to improve the quality of governance in the state and in the center. And I think, unfortunately, in the years after independence, our political parties do not seem to have realized the value of manifestos. Democracy became a very dominant theme from French Revolution days, and after our independence, and particularly after the adoption of our unique constitution, I do not know why the manifestos are just prepared at a short notice without deep thinking. It applies to all political parties. I am not blaming their political party. Most of the political parties seem to be more interested in the vote banks than in the need to improve the quality of governance, the quality of administration. And it's very sad that political parties are the weakest link in our democracy, as I mentioned in my book. And it is absolutely necessary for the political parties to realize the important role they have to play in a democracy. Western democracies have evolved over a period of time, but unfortunately, in the last few years, we seem to have lost our direction about how to improve our quality of governance. I sincerely hope that this opportunity you have created for the political parties give a very serious thought to the preparation of manifestos. As has already been mentioned, manifestos are the intentions of the political party. And very often, these political manifestos, you can analyze them as political, social, and economic. And in the last few years, you see it's either political or social and less economic. And it is necessary now on political parties to realize that the voters are not going to blindly vote, and they are going to demand certain promises, not only promises, certain implementation of the promises within a particular time frame. So the manifestos have to be prepared more to the Western democracies have got a well-oiled research set up in each party, and I had the privilege to visit some of them to know how they are preparing. But unfortunately, our national parties as well as regional parties have very little research in the matter of governance, in the matter of economic growth, or as Mr. Ram mentioned, foreign policies. We seem to have very limited exposure to these subjects. It is absolutely necessary to have a well-oiled research unit in each of the political parties. For example, in some of the Western countries, they have a shadow cabinet. This kind of a system doesn't seem to apply in India. And it is good to train young people in these fields so that they can take up these responsibilities at the appropriate time. So the political parties have to give a very serious thought to issues of governance when they prepare their manifestos. The other point I want to make is the local administration. I have recently contributed a chapter to an international publication saying that very often the Western thinkers seem to think India is a illiberal democracy. In my opinion, it is not so much an illiberal democracy, it is a licentious democracy. Everybody seems to do whatever he wants to do, whether it is a political party or a non-political party. They seem to have least respect for the rule of law. The kind of agitations that take place, well, they should take place, integral part of a democracy. Protests have to be there. But then it should not be at the cost of society. There should not be destruction of public properties. I think I will be very happy if one of the political parties can say in the manifesto that we will not indulge in any protest which will result in damage of public properties. I am sure I'll be the first person to vote for such a party. The need for stressing the importance of administration, particularly the police administration, is another area. Police Commission has given years and decades back suggestions for improving the quality of police administration. Now we have a situation where political parties threaten the police officers of the action to be taken if they come to power. Is this the way the political parties are expected to behave? They should certainly realize the importance of police administration, and police should be de-linked from politics. And the useful suggestions given by the police commission about 30 years back need to be examined. In fact, Supreme Court gave directions for the implementation, but unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not follow it up. They have given direction. They set up a judge, Mr. Thomas, who went through the recommendations. He appealed to all the state governments, but there are very few state governments who have really implemented the recommendations and the rulings of the Supreme Court. What action have we taken against them? So I think political parties have to give a serious thought on police administration, local self-government. In fact, they have to delegate more powers to the local governments. For example, yesterday you saw Lucknow corporation is coming with a bond. Surat had come earlier with a bond for developmental projects. How many state governments are willing to delegate powers to the local administration to indulge in developmental processes? They should support the local government to act on their own. I see no reason why setting up of a hospital in a district or a school in a district has to be approved by the state headquarters. So long as you give the guidelines, the local administration in the district should be empowered to give licenses. They have to, very often I have come across, for example, I am connected with an educational institution to get an approval for starting a teachers training college. We have funds, you would like to start, but we don't get approved. And it takes months and years to get such approval. So it is necessary for the government to seriously, not only the state government, even the central government, to delegate powers unless and until the political parties are willing to share their powers, delegate it. They can monitor it, all right, but they don't have to get involved in the decision making. This is one area: local administration, police administration, civil administration. They keep on transferring officers just before the election, and after the election, some more transfers take place. This is not the way administration has to be run. I have never seen in any of the Western democracies officers being shifted, except probably the American spoil system. But particularly in UK, for example, the people continue to work there. Well, we'll have to pull up fellows if you don't behave properly, if they don't work properly. But you keep on transferring, you politicize the officers. I have had some bitter experiences because I've had the opportunity to deal with almost all the state government when I was in the election commission. And the way in which the state government used to not only control the police, but also the way in which they run the election process. they try to have their own people influence. Although the Election Commission has been able to bring about a lot of changes in this regard. Another important point I would like to say is that there should be a law regulating the functioning of political parties. This has been recommended by the Association for Democratic Reforms, and a draft law has been prepared by under the leadership of Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya. I see no reason why any political party is interested in drafting such a law. In most of the countries in the world, you have a political law on political parties. If you can have a law for the formation of companies, for the regulation of companies, why should you not have, because public funds are involved in political? And the other point is funding of political parties. Unfortunately, the bearer bond scheme which was introduced is certainly not the right step to cleanse the funding of the political parties. I have been saying this more than once, that it must be withdrawn. This is not at all a good measure. The funding of political parties can take a different shape, and we have recommended, actually through the auspices of the Election Commission, that there can be a public funding of elections. The government should bring out a national election fund, and contributions to the election fund by the corporates as well as individuals can have 100% tax exemption. What is happening today is either the electoral bonds or even donations given, they have to satisfy the political parties, they have to keep certain things secret and so on. It is not at all transparent, although they claim that the bearer bond scheme has improved the quality of transparency. I do not agree at all. The funding of political parties needs to be changed. At least the national parties should take initiative for bringing about change in the funding of political parties and the law relating to political. And I have manpower in the government. No state government, no central government has ever given an application of mine to see whether the manpower in the government can be reduced. I have been in Delhi for more than 25 years, and I have also worked in some of the regional centers. I think if 10% of the manpower can be reduced in the government, the quality of governance will substantially improve. The public expenditure will also reduce. So it is absolutely necessary for government to think. I mean, you can employ them in different areas, but do not overload the secretariat with too many people and too many commissions, too many organizations. And I think the political parties have a responsibility to tell the people that they will not form such commissions to postpone decisions. It is necessary for them to give highest importance to improve the quality of administration. The manpower can be substantially reduced. The financial power and administrative powers to the local self-governments can be increased. The law should bring about changes, and the elections to the local government should take place periodically. Most of the state governments do not conduct the elections in time. And it is the grassroots of democracy, the local self-government. If you cannot hold the elections in time, I see no reason why you should call yourself as a political party. They have got to realize the importance of local self-government. And there should be a time limit. In the manifestos that are given, there is a general statement. In fact, when the matter was taken up with the Supreme Court, Mr. Arvind Datar was our advocate. I had briefed him on some of the issues, and I thought the Supreme Court will give us clear direction what should be in the manifesto and what should not be in the manifesto. In my opinion, the manifesto should only talk about public goods, cannot talk about appealing to a section of the voters. For example, giving cycles, giving grinding machine, giving TVs, and it should not be. If you are giving, you can talk about a stadium, or you can talk about a school or a college to be set up. But how can you appeal to certain sections of voters? It's a clear case of bribery of the voters. And this was brought in the hearing before the Supreme Court. And although the Supreme Court heard all that, they said the Election Commission should draw the guidelines. And the Election Commission guidelines are not as specific as it ought to be. But then they will be questioned. I'm sure that somebody will go to the court and say, if the manifesto certain clear conditions should be there, I'm sure the guidelines of the Election Commission will be questioned. So it should not be weak, but we must bring about a legislation, if necessary, by amending the Representation of People's Act to see that the freebies are not given to a section of the voters. So long as you give public goods to the people, it can be mentioned in the manifesto. Then I mentioned about the time limit of implementation of the project. Most of the manifestos just make general statements as to what they want to do. I just want to illustrate the example of Kuvam River in Madras. It is the biggest eyesore you have in this country. And I see no reason why no state government can take an initiative and make it a beautiful entertainment resort. They could have easily done it in probably 20 years back. At least now it is not too late. And if only they can float, if they don't have funds, let them float bonds. I'm sure number of corporates will subscribe to those bonds if you are going to beautify some of the portions of Madras. And the state government should take a serious note. How long are we going to have this Kuvam as a big eyesore in this state? And it's a matter of shame that more than 30, 40 years we have allowed it to exist as it is now. Industry is concerned, I think Mr. Ram has specifically mentioned. So all that I would say is there should be a single window clearance. Unfortunately, every state government says that we have a single window clearance. The state central government says, but many a time I find the industrialists are forced to go from here to post to get approval. When you have a single window clearance, it must be really a single window clearance. And that must be felt by the businessmen or industrialists who want to start. And you can give incentives for employees. In fact, when I was in the government, when I was in the Ministry of Finance, one of the suggestions we did consider whether we can give tax incentives for people employing more people. A certain basic requirement, a certain percentage growth in that, give them some tax incentive. The state government can give it. State governments have seemed to be keen on only giving freebies, but not in improving the working of industries. So we should give tax incentives if employment generation takes place by a particular percentage. That can be a standard, it should be prescribed, and certain incentives should be given in addition to a single window. And, health education, in my opinion, the state governments and the local self-government should concentrate on health education and infrastructure. It's a very sad state of affairs that the small things in private sector initiating a hospital or a school or an infrastructure project, it has to get the approval at the top political level. I see no reason why it should take place. We must learn to delegate, and the officers can be questioned if they have misused their powers. But if you are going to wait every file to be cleared by the political masters, I mean, for example, in UK, the income tax department files never go to the Chancellor of Exchequer. This is one of the rules. The income tax will be stopped with the administrative head. Policy matters will be taken by the Exchequer. But in India, I have been in the department, so many individual files go to the political masters. Is it necessary? Is the government expected to spend time on such matters? That is the reason why we are lagging behind in many areas. And I sincerely hope this kind of initiative you have taken, that the manifestos have to be given serious thought. And you can also say, although now 48 hours before the election, the manifesto should be given. In my opinion, it should be 15 days before the date of election, so that the people will be able to understand the implications of the manifestos. And there's no need to give so much of time for preparation of it. The other day I saw, just before the election, suddenly an additional manifesto is given by one of the political party. This is not fair. It is not fair to the people of this country, the voters of this country. And I think the need to improve the quality of manifestos from the point of view of political stability, from the point of view of social equality and economic growth. They are very important issues, and I only hope that the political parties will realize the importance of the manifestos to be taken seriously, to be implemented seriously. And I'm sure the voters are also consciously realizing over the years the need to question the political party. I think another suggestion I would say is, at the end of 3 years, the political parties can give a statement. It need not be statutorily required, but the political, or if there is a law on political parties, it can be prescribed. At the end of 3 years, each political party should give an assessment of the implementation of the policies promised in the manifesto. How much and what are the difficulties in implementing, so that there is again an intellectual discussion on how to improve some of those areas. With these words, may I say thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. Thank you for initiating such a process, because unfortunately, most of the political parties have not given any top importance to the role of manifestos. Manifestos play a very significant role. They can strengthen the political parties, they can improve the quality of governance, and there will be healthy competition if the manifestos are prepared by all political parties with more diligence, more responsibility, and more interest in the world. Thank you very much for giving me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for readily agreeing to our request. And you have raised a lot of key and important points. And on behalf of SICCI, we assure you, sir, that we will do the needful. We will take all these points, compile it, and ensure that we follow up with it, and we'll be sure to update you on the progress we make as well and seek your advice further. Thank you. We have with us Dr. A.C. Muthaiah. We are fortunate to have him grace this occasion. And I would now like to request if Dr. A.C. Muthaiah, sir, if you have any points that you would like to make or any suggestions, sir. So if I can request you to unmute yourself, sir, we are not able to hear you.
Okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir, please.
I have no specific points after hearing such eminent speakers. I came in a little late. I have no specific points.
Thank you, sir. Now we would move on to the representations from the chairpersons of our various expert committees representing a diversity of industrial sectors. So I would first like to request Mr. Shankar, the chairman for our infrastructure committee, to share his views briefly. Mr. Shankar, please.
Hi, thanks everyone for this opportunity, and definitely it's an interesting platform to share our thoughts. Especially I'm going to share a few thoughts around the infrastructure and the urban development sector.
Mr. Shankar, if I can briefly interrupt, if you can also introduce yourself so that the audience knows about you or your company that you represent.
Hi. Yes, I'm Shankar. I'm the head of strategy consulting and evaluations for JLL. JLL is a consulting firm. We provide end-to-end solutions in real estate and infrastructure solutions. So that's the background. So I represent the infrastructure sector. So we've been working with a lot of governments across the globe and also in India in providing various infrastructure related activities, and our core aspect is the property and real estate. So with that background, thanks for that. So with that background, we all know that Tamil Nadu is one of the most progressive states in the country, and Mr. Ram also highlighted the ranking of Tamil Nadu. I think every political manifesto, many talked about what should be the manifesto. I think we need to have an objective of the manifesto. And it is also very important how it is going to drive the economy and the social development by strengthening the physical and social infrastructure for the state. Even though we, in this particular state, Tamil Nadu ranks well ahead of many other states in the country, still there are a lot of areas for growth. So some of the points which I have highlighted for today's discussion is we need to have some priority. So how to make Tamil Nadu as India's top investment destination. Today, countries are competing with each other, states are competing with each other, cities are competing with each other. So how are we going to position Tamil Nadu to attract the top investments which are coming in India? Of course, today Tamil Nadu is number 2, but how to reach number 1? So that should be the top priority. Second top priority should be how to achieve a state level GDP growth of, let's say, about 20% per annum. So Tamil Nadu's growth has been growing. I think currently we are at about 12 or 13% growth from a state level GDP. How to reach 20%? So what are the things? I think infrastructure will definitely play an important role. Also, to achieve a top position in ease of doing business among Indian states. Today, Tamil Nadu is at number 14th. So ease of doing business categorizes a lot of these parameters. An investor or a company who wants to invest in India would look at. So how to reach number one position in ease of doing business. This all means that we need to increase our infrastructure spending. Today, we might be around 12 to 13%, but how to have an infrastructure spending against our GDP, maybe around 20% every year, or beyond 20%. To provide state-of-the-art infrastructure services with access to water, sanitation, housing, transportation, connectivity, healthcare infrastructure is becoming a paramount importance nowadays, education infrastructure, energy-related aspect. And we all know that Tamil Nadu is most urbanized state in India. And I think 50% of our population, close to 50% of our population live in urban centers. What it means is that we need to provide the best quality of life, provision of social infrastructure, because we need to cater to that particular investment which is coming into the state by providing the best the social infrastructure related aspect. The other point is the adequate supply of safe drinking water. So today, the water supply is across various cities and rural areas been not adequate, even though we have the piped coverage of about 95-97% across rural and urban areas. How to cover 100% piped coverage with adequate, clean and safe drinking water. So water is not just water, it should be safe and adequate. Underground sewerage system is also very important. Whether we have 100% across our states, no. I think we are better than many states, but not 100%. How to achieve 100% across urban and also rural areas. Today, the peri-urban areas are most impacted. Today, we provide better services in the core urban centers, but the development is happening in the peri-urban areas, but which is typically the rural areas. We don't have the underground sewerage. I'm talking about all cities across Tamil Nadu, not Chennai alone. Then the focus on providing basic services to the urban poor and the slum dwellers. How to make Tamil Nadu a slum-free state in next 5 years should be an important aspect. So once you have a priority like that, so you have many initiatives which will revolve around that particular aspect. Also, housing is an important thing. So housing, affordable housing is part of the infrastructure gamut. So how to provide housing for all, maybe a right to housing. Can we build 50 lakh housing units in the next 5 years? So those are the priorities we need to have, focusing purely on the EWS category of population. Also, can we provide additional creation of rental housing scheme? Today, even though Tamil Nadu dominates the rental housing, roughly about 40% of our housing comes from rental housing. How to increase this, and can we provide dedicated rental housing schemes, even to address about 10 lakh rental housing units in the next 5 years time, so that your housing demand is more and we can reduce the housing shortage. Today, I think the housing shortage levels are in the level of about 9 to 10%. So how to reduce that is another important aspect to be covered as part of any political manifesto. And development of suburban townships and the new urban centers to provide better livelihood with affordability for LIG and MIG. So this is also very important. To people are preferring more self-sustainable cities or self-sustainable developments, which can happen only in the peripheral areas of cities. So what we need is that we need more of suburban townships coming in, which will provide the livability and affordability for LIG, MIG, EWS, and all of them. So improving the public transportation system and the road connectivity, which is very, very important. how are we going to ensure the real public transport options which would be available within all of our cities, so that you encourage people to reduce the usage of cars, maybe migrate or promote walkability. Chennai is doing, and we are also associated with many departments in providing the walkability, maybe the cycling, bicycle sharing systems, by providing increased walkways and cycle tracks. So all of those should be part of this, so that we can promote non-formal or non-motorized transportation modes. And also a lot of the urban land is available for redevelopment. So redevelopment of vacant land coupled with land monetization of unused government properties could be used for developing large scale housing projects for the urban poor, or it could be a commercial development which could bring in a lot of income to the government, which can be spent on the other aspects. And again, we are talking about the congestion on the roads, whether we can have multi-level car parking across multiple cities across the state. Then redevelopment of urban transport hubs. Currently, a lot of projects are happening in Chennai. So can we replicate these urban transport hubs to be created across different cities? Then focus on solar power generation at the household level or the housing level with renewable energy focus is an important, because the whole world is moving towards sustainability. So how are we going to incorporate that? So we had many schemes towards the solar rooftop and all of that. So how are we going to go into the next trend of the solar power generation? Again, I will be a little quick on some of the other points. Strengthen tourism. Today, Tamil Nadu is ranked #1 in terms of domestic tourist arrival. So how to strengthen it? Because after post-COVID, there is going to be a huge inflow of tourists, both domestic and the foreign. So how are we going to capture that opportunity and make complete a tourism infrastructure roadmap for Tamil Nadu for the next 5 years? The promotion of electric buses. So today we have 500 buses electric buses being there in the Tamil Nadu state. So how to make all our buses electric vehicles coming in, electric buses coming in, and of course to provide the infrastructure required for these electric buses are also very, very important. And in the same time, we can provide large land parcels which can be provided to the players who provide electric vehicles manufacturing and also electric vehicles component manufacturing. So this is also very important. So there is a need to create at least about 10 to 15 land banks across the state for industrial cluster development as an industrial city, which would be self-sustainable in nature, which will have high quality physical and social infrastructure, also which will provide employment. So Tamil Nadu needs at least about 10 to 15. Today we have about 4 or 5. Already chairman was mentioning about that. So we need at least 10 to 15. So we have land banks. So the land banks should be accumulated to provide at least about 10 to 15 industrial cluster development across the state. So today, Tamil Nadu follows still the industrial policy of 2014. Now a draft policy is underway, but there is a need to have a robust industrial and infrastructure policy for the state, which will compete with the neighboring states and the states of India. I think we need to position India in a global map. So branding Tamil Nadu is of paramount importance. So can we have a international PR agency or branding agency to brand Tamil Nadu, not within India, but global branding is required to make Tamil Nadu as a #1 state in India. Of course, at the end of the day, we need to be aware about the climate change, building resilient state, building resilient cities is the end of the day is very, very important. So a lot of initiatives and focus should be on how to build a sustainable state or a sustainable city within the state of Tamil Nadu. So with those words, I close here. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar, for your valuable comments. I would now like to request Mr. Ratnavel Rajan, the co-chair for our HR committee, Mr. Ratnavel Rajan. He's the head HR for Ball Corporation. I now request him to share his thoughts on the suggestions with regards to the labor sector.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thanks for great to represent on the labor sector. Tamil Nadu is one of the states known for its labor sector, and the industrial sector is really progressing. The ease of doing the business is one of the things which we need to continue to improve upon. And from the labor side, I would like to touch upon, we would like to put the very first point on the labor welfare fund. The labor welfare fund is the one which is very thought-provokingly it was made implemented, but unfortunately the benefits are not known to the many of the people and not being utilized properly. So the focus should be put forth on the labor welfare fund. For example, in some of the states, if there's a natural death of a labor, they can get up to 7 lakh rupees through the labor welfare fund. But unfortunately, in Tamil Nadu, they're eligible only for about 25,000 rupees through a labor fund. So these all the benefits need to be relooked at it. The real labor will get benefited when we are going to implement the benefits from the labor welfare fund effectively. And the awareness also should reach out to the each and every category of the people. Also, the unorganized labor welfare board is started effectively functioning in the recent times, but still it need to reach the mass. Still there are lakhs and lakhs of people who are not covered under the unorganized sector, so they need to be brought under, and the benefits should be extended to them. Especially during the Corona period, we have seen that how much it is helpful for this sector of the people. When it comes to the industrial sector, in the industry side and the labor sector, the migrant labor, so we saw the kind of the movement happened during this pandemic situation. Now started coming back to the Tamil Nadu. Now we need to ensure that the compliance and the benefit program for them is being followed and implemented uniformly. And also the government should ensure that there are some of the neighbor state have come with a specific law which is regulating the migrant labor benefits and their social security aspects. An example is Karnataka has brought in a very transparent law on this. So we should really look at it to implement in Tamil Nadu also. And also when it comes to the NEEM, there's a training scheme. No, under the NEEM trainees, there is a lot of exploitation is also happening in some of the industries, which government need to regulate it actually. So as an election manifesto, it need not be exclusively NEEM, but regulating the service conditions of any category of employees, ensuring the social security for them. And when it comes to the statutory and the industrial regulations for this, it's very important to digitalize all the possible platforms, especially to the labor department and the industrial safety and the health aspects. So there are started happening. But for example, if you want to make a payment for the pressure vessels and other things, still we need to do it offline thing. And there are with the new normal, we can also look at implementing the to make the ease of the business. The instead of the inspections, it can be an audit. People can submit their proofs and other things online. Online audits can also happen. Also, the payment of the fees and other things, everything can be through an online platform. And creating more counseling centers across the state, because for the welfare of the employees, for the labor, more counseling centers and the training and coaching centers are really required, which government has to really make this to happen. And on the social security, and now there's a new wage code, and all the 4 codes have come. So the rules are being formulated at the central level. Also, we request that the state level also should expedite to follow the central act and the central rule. Tamil Nadu also to be a front runner in this, and to implement and make the life of both the employer and the employee easy and to run the business effectively. This is all the recommendation we are put forth from the labor sector. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Ratnavel Rajan, for your invaluable thoughts and suggestions. I would now like to request Mr. Balaji, Head of Shared Services from L&T, who heads the BFSI committee of SICCI. So I request Mr. Balaji to share his thoughts, please. So if you could unmute yourself, please.
Vinod, again, a brief about Mr. Balaji, if you can.
Sure, please.
Yeah, you are able to hear?
Yes, Mr. Balaji, for the benefit of our audience, he heads the shared services of the L&T. And Mr. Balaji, he is also the chair for SICCI's BFSI, Banking and Financial Services and Insurance Expert Committee's chair. So I request Mr. Balaji to share his thoughts, please.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks, Vinod, for the introduction, and good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel, and thanks for the opportunity as well. And while we are in the process of formulating all our policies, approaches, and all that, since the elections are forthcoming, we thought we'll place some of the points for consideration. As we know, Tamil Nadu has been categorized as an emerging destination, in the recent report which Government of India had published. While Andaman and Goa is scoring high, we are still nowhere near them, and startups are also expecting a policy boost, in the case of ease of doing business. So there are a lot of things which the government can do, and since I'm representing the BFSI, I would like to state that from a fintech point of view, possibly we'll start with this, where the government of Tamil Nadu has already directed TIDCO to establish the fintech city in 2 locations in around Chennai. But in my view, the locations should not be centered only in Chennai, but if the state has to grow, as a balanced development, it has to look at most of the other locations in the state where people are now, centered. It should not be restricted only to Chennai is what I feel. But even in Chennai, if we look at it, there has not been a significant, movement. So the project needs to have time-bound deliverables, and it should also include all, future financial technologies which world over, they have adopted. This is something which has not happened. One, we need to bring the latest technologies and bring in more areas into adoption of fintech, which can give not only the faster boost to the government's efforts in completing the projects and also assisting the business, but it will also help in generating a lot of employment. It will generate a lot of business for the real estate. For example, when fintech is booming, the fintech cities are established. It brings in a lot of people, not only from within the state, but also from outside the state. So when they move in accordingly, there is an associated development on other businesses as well as real estate. As we know, real estate also is in deep trouble over the last several years. This will boost the demand for real estate as well. When real estate booms again, there is an opportunity for employment, not only at the construction workers level, but also in terms of all other associated industries, be it steel or cement or any other thing where the state is already has surplus capacity. Second point is that this will also generate a lot of taxation income for the government as well. So both in terms of real estate development, the land allotments and things like that also needs to be prioritized when we try to grow this aspect. So one, it helps the government to create employment, create opportunities for all other associated businesses, and also brings in people to into the state. Thereby, the spending of the people also helps in developing the economy or moving the economy forward. That incidentally gives the government also in terms of taxation revenue. Now that GST has been brought in over the last 3 years, so it is the share of the state in the GST collection is based on consumption. So hence, this will give a lot of room for the government also to have a good share in the GST collections of the central government as well. So that is something which government. So one is, apart from developing Chennai for this, my suggestion will be to look at other locations like Coimbatore, Madurai, and other centers where you have very good resources who can come in and drive this as well, and there are investors in those locations as well. Second point is the promotion of the digitalization. While the government has done the digitalization of the land records and things like that, the registered documents and all that, possibly the other areas where it can be done in terms of, say, property tax collections and water tax collections, all that they have done, but then the records are still not completely done. And even for doing all this tax payment, there are charges which are imposed by these agencies. For example, Metro Water collects charges for making payment through the credit cards and other digital means, which should be avoided. Apart from net banking, all other modes of payments are chargeable to some service charges. This needs to be looked at, and various other records associated with various health centers and hospitals and all that also needs to be done. So this will, promoting digitalization in those areas also will generate lot of employment as well as revenue for the government, and also give the state latest look of being modern. So that will help the state to also generate a lot of investment from overseas investors when everything is automated and digitalized. Another thing which the government should consider also is the public-private partnerships. It has not grown to the expected level, possibly because of the funding issues. So in our view, the government should look at some sort of an annuity or a hybrid model of funding the capex in developing into this. They should get into more partnerships. Earlier, TIDCO was very active, but we don't find too many partnerships happening through TIDCO. Possibly something like a Sri City, which was developed on our border, which also has pulled in a lot of industries from Tamil Nadu, has to be looked at within Tamil Nadu as well. I think this is something which we would like the government to focus upon. Similarly, the creation of various social infrastructure also needs to be looked at, and properly some sort of an incentivization scheme has to be done. We saw, for example, Gujarat, where they brought in Tata Motors when they wanted to move out of Bengal. But then we missed out on that. So likewise, they were given instant land and they were given a lot of tax concessions and all that by the Gujarat government. Possibly we should also be more industry friendly and try to proactively use the opportunity or create opportunities for development. This again, industrial development, as we all know, creates development in all other sectors also. One, you will be able to cater to the demand of the local market. Second is, you will also be able to generate employment, thereby creating a lot of opportunities for people within the state or for people moving from other states. Second is, the state being a developed state means there will be a lot of such industries associated with that who will be interested in coming over to the state for doing more businesses. So we should, the government should look at making more such tie-ups is what we feel proactively that will help. Third thing, or maybe another factor which has to be looked at, is the export financing opportunities. We need to create some sort of an export financing desk to bring all the export financing agencies under one umbrella, like what ECC or Exim Bank or other banks are doing. Now it is left to the individual industries or the sector or the companies to go and approach them. There should be a single window approach which should help. Similarly, to serve the MSME sector also, there has to be some sort of a agency which unifies. Today, the central government has created a lot of platforms and all that for making payment to the MSME sector, registration and all that. But the state, in our view, should not lag behind. They should also ensure that all these local MSME industries are able to get into this platform, facilitate them for renewals or registrations, and make sure that we give them the right infrastructure and the benefits for them to perform. So for any industry or economy, MSME is a backbone, and this also generates a lot of direct and indirect employment at the lowest levels as well. So that is something which is really critical for us to look at. The government, in our view, should also create a task force with the participation of both the government and the industry to identify what are all the potential opportunities, that can happen or happening all around the globe, for us to be the front runners in driving that. This is something which is critical, which, for example, Gujarat does, Karnataka has done, even Hyderabad, for example, has done it to a great extent. And we are lagging behind, and we should try to project more, create opportunities, get the best infrastructure, and also a best team which can give a single window clearance, and facilitation. That is something which can be certainly looked at. Another thing is the healthcare or the health insurance part, which when the Honorable Jayalalitha Madam was the Chief Minister, she had instituted the health insurance scheme. But that is at a very low level. Maybe the benefit is to the extent of only 1 lakh or 2 lakhs. That is what is being given. But then the administration and the claim process that appears to be very strenuous and stretching for a common man. Government should again make it easier, expand the scheme and cover more people at some threshold, and maybe with the current healthcare cost going in the upswing, possibly increase the limits as well. So these are some of the immediate recommendations that we would like to propose for the government to adopt. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. I would now like to request Mr. Suresh Kalpathy, the chairman for Entertainment and Media Committee. He was scheduled to speak. Unfortunately, owing to because he was sick, he could not join in. So he has sent in his recommendations. I now request Mrs. Bhavani Srinivasan, the Assistant Secretary, to kindly read out his comments, please.
Good evening, all. On behalf of Mr. Suresh Kalpathy, Chairman, Entertainment and Media, and is the Director and CEO of AGS Groups, he had given some recommendations for election manifesto. The first division is production and distribution. Easy in certification from bodies such as animal welfare and censor measures. The second is
Vinod, we are having a bit of audio problem on Bhavani system.
Fine. I would quickly read through the comments that Mr. Kalpathy Suresh had made. Production and distribution, ease in certification from bodies such as Animal Welfare and Censor Board to make it a level playing field, as streaming on OTT platforms do not have to conform to such measures. To lower the GST, the third point is to bring the entire theatre network online to enable transparent ticketing and efficient and accurate sharing between producers, distributors, and exhibitors. This will also enable the government to achieve optimal GST collections. Fourth point, tax refunds for shooting in India. This will promote local tourism. Fifth, getting approvals for shooting in India is very complicated and expensive. Cutting red tape here will help with production costs, as complicated sets need not be erected. Next, revise the Cinemas Regulation Act. It is outdated and does not have updated provisions pertaining to digital cinemas. Next, renewals to be made easy using a single window system. Next point, new arrivals can also be done through a single window system. Currently, a file needs to pass through many offices, and some of them twice, which should be streamlined as multiple inspections take time. The next point, the NBC needs to be implemented across all cinemas. Old cinemas still do not have sufficient safeguards in place. The next point is, local body entertainment tax needs to be dropped to encourage more patrons. Currently, this adds to the ticket price paid by the viewers. Next point, TNEB CIEG approval norms need to be revised to adopt digital cinema. Some of the provisions still relate to old reel projectors and safety standards are set accordingly. Next point, to drop the requirement of a projectionist license as the course is no longer valid and most projectionists with the license are above the age of 60. The next point, to allow cinema halls to operate for 24 hours. This will allow the business to have a better capacity utilization during big movie releases and festival days. Tax collections will also improve. And the final point, allow cinema halls to exhibit content like sports and live concerts. This will help exhibition business to create multiple revenue channels like other viewing platforms like the OTT and satellite TV channels who do have such restrictions. I thank Mr. Kalpati Suresh for his comments and suggestions. And we also have requested a few of our chairpersons for their comments, which have been recorded and sent to us. So we would now like to play these 5-minute recorded comments from our other committees. First, we would be playing the comments of Dr. Thangam Meghanathan, the chairperson for our education committee. Dr. Thangam Meghanathan is also the chairperson for the Rajalakshmi group of institutions.
Thangam Meghanathan, Chairperson Rajalakshmi. The education panel members, I would like to propose the following points to be included in the election manifesto of the Tamil Nadu government, elections to come. Point number 1, take over the education loan where the students belong to the economically weaker section to improve the skill education, provide support to students who need to access online learning, provide incentives to teachers in terms of tax-free facilities, healthcare and housing to make the profession of teaching more attractive, incentivize the managements of educational institutions in terms of providing ease of functioning, discounts on electricity bills and water charges for school buildings and college buildings, improve transport connectivity across the city to benefit students and teachers, develop a roadmap for Tamil Nadu to become hub for higher education, provide more teacher improvement programs, transfer of students and teachers between universities to become seamless, incentivize those industries that provide internships, R&D focus and placements, create state-level incubation centers for the startups in the area of digital technology. Just on lines with national hackathons being run by MHRD, same state-level hackathons can be run to solve some of the state government problems that can be taken up by the students. These are some of the humble suggestions. I request the authorities to take care of them. Thank you very much.
I thank Dr. Thangam Meghanathan for her comments, and we would be sure to include it in our recommendations to the various political parties. We would now be playing the video of Mr. M.V. Subramanian, the chairman for the Technology Committee. Mr. Subramanian he's also the founder and managing director of Future Focus Information Technology.
Hi, my name is Subramanian. I am chair for technology part of SICCI. So some of the recommendations which we wanted to give it for the future adoption by any incoming government, or the first one in the priority is branding Tamil Nadu as an IT destination. This was one of the long-standing requirement we had, but fortunately or unfortunately, we did not brand as good as other states are promoting. The second one is the thrust should be on the skill development on newer technologies. We had a good head start with ICT Academy, but the implementation and the adoption of newer technologies by the academy and their probable the absorption of the IT industry as they are was not successful much in the newer areas. So the focus has to be on the developing skills on the newer technologies. The promotion of work from home policy which can benefit women employment more in the state should be done. We also recommend that we have task force for most of the areas which is related to IT. In that, the first one is IT adoption by government through PPP model. We should have some task force. Skill development process. We should have task force related to academia and the industry and build this whole robust process for skill development. Building infrastructure, building IT infrastructure as well as the physical infrastructure for promotion of IT, there should be a task force. Then bringing out policies, there should be a separate task force. So these task force will be more focused on providing the input to the government. The fifth point which I wanted to look at is adoption of AI, cloud, blockchain and cyber security practices by government and promote it outside. Also, democratize the available data and allow company to participate in solving problems. So this will help to demonstrate our state as the state which is adapting most of these newer technologies, and it will help many companies to come and set up their units in Tamil Nadu. The one of the agenda which probably we can run for the state government is like float PPP model for all the IT infrastructure what we wanted to develop. So this will help effective implementation as well as it will help many companies to participate for the state government growth on IT. The other bigger area was a startup which I want to touch upon. First of all, we should have executable startup policy with key KPIs. There was startup policy which was promoted, but it was not been very implementable or not been looked at what are the KPIs to achieve. We should be able to get the KPIs and monitor it. Create fund for accelerating startup growth. This is one of the very important criteria. Create a fund and deploy it through fund of funds. There are many investment funds which are there in Tamil Nadu. We can take that support to invest further for the growth of startup, not for seed funding the startup, which will be done by the incubation centers. The last one, which is the ninth point which I wanted to look at, is building evaluation process for the incubation centers, where we have already invested money either through the central government or the state government, which will promote competitive incubation centers, which will promote more startups to get into this incubation center. Thank you very much. Probably if there is any clarification, I am willing to further go into detail to provide those. Thank you.
I thank Mr. M.V. Subramanian for his thoughts and suggestions. I would now like to play the recording of Mr. B. Sriram, the chairman for SICCI's Taxation Committee. Mr. B. Sriram is a partner for Ernst & Young, and we would now listen to Mr. B. Sriram's comments.
Hi everyone. In Tamil Nadu, as the elections are due by May 2021, parties have already started to work on the election manifesto. As part of the manifesto, it is expected that there will be certainly promises relating to industrial development and job creations. But not much is expected from the taxation point of view. In this regard, it may be noted that post-implementation of GST in the country with effect from 1st July 2017, states will not have the ability to adjust rates of GST as a decision-making power now vests with the GST Council. At best, there can be some recommendatory policy which a party can mention in its manifesto with regard to products and services unique to the state which can be recommended for special tax treatments. In the past, some of the parties' election manifesto have also made promises on income tax, particularly in the area of personal taxation. Today in Tamil Nadu, out of the total government revenue receipts, about 60% comes out of the state's own tax revenue. Of this, sales tax VAT on petroleum product constitute about 26% of the total revenue, netting about 56,000 crores. The state portion of the GST comes next with around 45,000 crores and stamp duty standing third in the order with about 11,000 crores. With the state reeling under the impact of COVID and its adverse impact on state finance, as well as centre's inability to provide the state's due of GST in a timely manner, promise in election manifesto on indirect tax front could practically be nil. However, it is expected that the election manifesto will contain good number of proposals for industrial development and job creations through different forms of subsidies and tax reimbursements, particularly for new industry setup. If the Industrial Policy 2014 is not replaced before the Code of Conduct kicks in, then a brand new industrial policy will also be one of the key promises in the election manifesto. Beyond the above, I do not expect that there will be much from the tax point of view in the party's election manifesto in the ensuing Tamil Nadu 2021 elections. Thank you.
I thank Mr. B. Sriram for his comments. We now have Mr. D. Ravi, the chairman for SICCI's MSME committee, sharing his views. Mr. D. Ravi, he's the managing partner for Classic Molds, and we will now listen to his thoughts and suggestions.
I am Ravi, Chairman, MSME Committee of SICCI. Greeting to all the dignitaries and my fellow members. Good afternoon to all. I like to present following points to the government as our representation from the MSME. The first one I like to mention is about the industrial land. State government must consider allotment of industrial land on freehold basis and at subsidized cost to all MSMEs. Most of the industrial estates where currently the MSMEs are operating are fully occupied, and MSEs are not having much land for further expansion. It's a high time the government should consider giving a subsidized industrial estate land with all the facilities like STP, ETP, solid waste management, common testing facilities, and other similar facilities. So which should be sort of a plug and play kind of a facility should be there for the industries to start operating. Unlike the current way how it's been, land is just divided and given with no basic amenities, then it becomes very Herculean task for the unit holders to create all these infrastructures. Next, second point I like to mention is the receipt of payments. It's really a challenge for all MSMEs to receive payment on time from many Tier 1 and OEM customers. Though there is a rule to pay to all MSMEs within 45 days, in reality it is not being honored. And minimum wages published by the state government varies from time to time. The increase in minimum wages is done without proper consultation with the industries. Government must take industrial bodies into confidence before announcing the increase in minimum wages. When all the MSMEs are struggling for survival with no price increase for the products from their customers, on top of this, year-on-year reductions are being demanded by the customers, constant increase in raw material prices on the other front, increase in wages costs also adds another huge burden to the MSMEs. If government can able to consider these points, definitely be a big relief to the MSMEs in the years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. As a final recording, we have Mr. Caldwell Valenambi, the president of FETNA. FETNA stands for the Federation of Tamil Associations of North America. Mr. Caldwell Valenambi recorded his comments on behalf of the diaspora, the Tamil diaspora that exists all around the world. And I would like to place on record the support that Mr. Caldwell Valenambi gave us all through this time in organizing the Yadamure conclave. And even this video, he recorded it at 1 a.m. this morning and sent it to us. So we would listen to the suggestions of Mr. Caldwell, the president of FETNA, on what the Tamil diaspora needs.
வணக்கம். கால்டுவெல் வேல்நம்பி. இந்த முறை சட்டசபை தேர்தலில் எந்த கட்சி ஆட்சிக்கு வந்தாலும் புலம்பெயர்ந்த தமிழர்கள் சார்பாக என்னுடைய எதிர்பார்ப்புகள், அனுபவங்களை உங்களிடம் பகிர்ந்து கொள்வதற்கு வாய்ப்பளித்தமைக்கு முதற்கண் வணக்கம், நன்றி, வாழ்த்துகள். தமிழின் உயிர் தொல்காப்பியம், தமிழனின் உயிர் திருக்குறள் என்ற அடிப்படையில் புலம்பெயர்ந்து வாழும் தமிழர்களில் நானும் ஒருவன். இந்த வரக்கூடிய தேர்தல் சூழல்ல எந்த அரசு ஆட்சிக்கு வந்தாலும் என்னுடைய எதிர்பார்ப்புகள், தமிழனாக, ஒரு குடியுரிமை உள்ள ஒரு தமிழ் குடிமகனாக, தமிழுக்காக, தமிழர் நலனுக்காக, தமிழ் சங்கங்களுக்காக, தொழில் முனைவோருக்காக, தொப்புள் கோடை உறவுடன் உள்ள அடுத்தலைமுறைக்காக இந்த 5 பிரிவுகளை நான் முன்வைக்கிறேன். தமிழுக்காக இன்றைய சான்றுகள் உலகில் உள்ள செம்மொழிகளில் மூத்த மொழியாக உள்ள தமிழினை உலகத்தில் உள்ள புலம்பெயர்ந்த தமிழர்களுடன் ஒத்துழைத்து இணைந்து அவர்களுடைய ஒத்துழைப்போடு தமிழக அரசு தனி தொல்லியல் துறையில் செயல்பட்டு கொண்டிருக்கும் இந்த சிறப்பான காலகட்டங்களில் அதற்காக ஒரு பெரிய தொகையை ஒதுக்கி ஓரிடங்களில் ஈரிடங்களில் ஆராய்ச்சி செய்யும் இந்த சூழலில் இருந்து கிட்டத்தட்ட சங்க இலக்கியங்களில் உள்ள உயர் ஊர் பெயர்களை இந்த தலைமுறைக்கு எடுத்து இயம்புவதற்கு உற்ற துணையை தமிழுக்காக செய்ய வேண்டியது அடிப்படை கடமை. அடுத்து, தமிழ் மொழியை உலகில் உள்ள 200 நாடுகளில் இன்றைய காலகட்டங்களில் புலம்பெயர்ந்து வாழும் தமிழர்களை ஒருங்கிணைத்து ஒன்றிணைத்து ஒரே ஒரு பாலமாக, ஒரு குழுமமாக தமிழகம் கொணர வேண்டிய சூழலில் தள்ளப்பட்டுள்ளோம். இதற்கு காரணம் என்னவென்றால், ஒவ்வொரு ஊர்ல இருக்கக்கூடிய தமிழர்களும் அங்க நம்ம தமிழ் மொழியை அடையாளப்படுத்தி அங்க சான்றமைத்து உலகளவுல மூத்த மொழி அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு உரிமையை முழு ஆதாரமாக கொண்டு சேர்க்க வேண்டியது அனைத்து பல்கலைக்கழக இருக்கைகளிலும் உலகில் உள்ள பெரும் தனித்துவம் வாய்ந்த அனைத்து கல்வி பல்கலைக்கழகங்களிலும் தமிழுக்காக இருக்கை அமைக்க வேண்டியது இந்த அரசினுடைய கடமையாக இருக்க வேண்டும். மூன்றாவதாக, தமிழர்கள் இங்கு வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கும் இந்த காலத்தில் நம் பண்பாடு, கலாச்சாரம், அறிவியல் சார்ந்த, சங்க இலக்கியம் சார்ந்த அனைத்து வளங்களையும் உள்ள தமிழ் மொழியிலிருந்து அடுத்த தலைமுறைக்கு எடுத்துச் செல்ல வேண்டிய பொறுப்புகள் நிறைய இருப்பதை ஒரு ஆன்லைன் மூலியமாகவோ அல்லது எல்லா உலகத்தில் உள்ள அனைத்து தமிழர்களும் அதை பயன்படுத்தும் வகையில் இந்த சூழலை உருவாக்கி கொடுப்பது மிக மிக முக்கியம். இது தமிழுக்காக நான் வைக்கக்கூடிய சான்றுகள். தமிழர் நலனுக்காக, தமிழர்களுக்காக தமிழ் பேசாத இந்தியர்களிடம் தமிழினை, தமிழர் பெருமைகளை கொண்டு செல்வது, இந்தியாவில் உள்ள மற்ற மாநிலங்களுக்கு எடுத்து செல்வதும் நம் கடமை. புலம்பெயர்ந்த தமிழர்களிலிருந்து தாயகம் திரும்பும் தமிழர்கள், இன்னைக்கு தமிழில் இருக்கக்கூடிய அறிவின் ஆற்றல், தமிழ் வழி படித்த, தமிழ்நாட்டில் பிறந்து வளர்ந்த அனைத்து நாடுகளிலும் தமிழ்நாட்டிலிருந்து புலம்பெயர்ந்து நல்ல பதவியில் இருக்கும் லட்சக்கணக்கான புலம்பெயர்ந்தவர்கள் தாயகம் திரும்பும் சூழல் ஏற்பட்டால் இங்கிருந்து திரும்ப தாயகம் வருபவர்களுக்கு தகுந்த வசதிகளையும், வசதி என்பது காசோ பணமோ இல்லை, அவர்களுக்கு வாழ்வுக்கு தேவையான அடிப்படைகளை, கட்டமைப்பினை, நல்ல பணியாற்ற சிறந்த இடத்தினை, அறிவினை பயன்படுத்தி கொள்ளக்கூடிய அளவிற்கு தமிழக அரசு அவர்களுடன் இணைந்து செயல்பட்டு ஒரு தளத்தினை, ஒரு இணையதளத்தினை, உலகில் உள்ள அனைத்து கூடிய ஒரு தளத்தினை முழுமையாக ஏற்படுத்தி செய்தால் தாயகம் திரும்பும் தமிழர்கள் அடுத்த தலைமுறைக்கும் தமிழகத்திற்கும் வலுவுக்கு வலு சேர்ப்பதுடன், அறிவுக்கு அறிவு சேர்ப்பதுடன், செல்வத்திற்கு செல்வம் சேர்ப்பதுடன், வாழ்வாதாரங்கள் நாம் மீண்டும் எழுச்சியுடன் விழுமியங்களை அடைய வாய்ப்புகள் நிறைய ஏற்படுத்தலாம். அடுத்து, இங்கு வெளி மாநிலங்களில், வெளி நாடுகளில், அயலகங்களில் இருக்கக்கூடிய தொழில் முனைவோர்களை அவர்கள் கற்றவைகளை கற்பித்தலாக இங்கிருந்து அங்கு வரும் பொழுது அவர்கள் அங்குள்ள மாணவர்களுக்கு, இளைய தலைமுறைக்கு பாடம் வகுப்பதற்கு, அனுபவங்களை பகிர்ந்து கொள்வதற்காகவும், வாய்ப்பு வசதிகளை விமர்சிப்பதற்காகவும், விவாதிப்பதற்காகவும் ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு சூழலை தமிழக அரசில் வெளிநாட்டு வாழ் தமிழர்களுக்காக ஒரு தனி அமைச்சரகத்தை ஏற்படுத்தி அதில் அனைவரையும் இணைப்பது கடமையாக இருக்க வேண்டும் என்பது அன்பு வேண்டுகோள். இன்னைக்கு இந்தியாவில் இருக்கக்கூடிய தமிழ்நாட்டில் தொழில் முனைவோர்களில், தொழில் நலம் வளம் பெற்றுள்ள கூடிய மாநிலங்களில் பெரும் பங்களிப்பது தமிழ்நாடு. ஆனால் கடந்த 15 ஆண்டுகளாக வளமில்லாமல், வாழ்வாதாரமே இல்லாமல், வேலைவாய்ப்பு இல்லாமல், வேலைவாய்ப்பு குறைவு, தொற்று காலம், இந்த சூழலில் அடுத்து வருமுன் காவாதான் வாழ்க்கை எரிமுன்ன வைத்த தூறு போல் கடும் என்ற வள்ளுவன் சொன்ன வாக்குப்படி அடுத்த ஒரு 30 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு தொழில் முனைவோர்களை அரவணைத்து அவர்களுக்கு அனைத்து வாய்ப்புகளையும் கொடுத்து எந்தெந்த வகையில் வேலை வாய்ப்பினை உருவாக்கி வளத்தினை வளப்படுத்த முடியுமோ அதற்கு உலகில் உள்ள தமிழர்களை எல்லாம் அழைத்து அவர்களை வந்து சிறு தொழிலாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, வீரிய தொழிலாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அவர்களுக்கு வாய்ப்பளிக்க வேண்டியது கடமையாக இருக்கும். அடுத்து, உலகில் உள்ள தமிழ்ச்சங்கங்களை எல்லாம் இணைத்து தமிழர்களையும் தமிழர்களுடைய வளத்தினை, இலக்கியத்தை, இலக்கணத்தை, மரபினை மேம்படுத்துவதற்காக ஒரு ஒருங்கிணைப்பு பாடமாக செயல்படுத்துவது அவசியமான ஒன்று. இக்காலகட்டத்தில் தமிழ் பேசாத தமிழர்கள் இன்றைய சூழலில் நிறைய இருக்கிறார்கள். அவர்களை தமிழ் பேச வைக்க வேண்டியது கடமை. தமிழ் தெரியாத இந்தியர்களிடம் தமிழின் பெருமையை எடுத்து செல்வது கடமை.
I thank Mr. Caldwell Velnambi for his suggestions, especially creation of a separate department to handle Tamil diaspora. Friends, with this we come to the end of the sectoral presentations. I would now take this opportunity to request all the participants to send us their comments, maybe as a presentation or as a video or as a document. We would be happy to include that in our report, in our compilation, so that we will be able to make it more comprehensive and well-rounded as we go about meeting the political parties next week. So please send us an email SICCI@SICCI.in. That is SICCI@SICCI.in. We've had a few requests to share their thoughts today. Owing to the paucity of time, we apologize. We are not able to listen to various thoughts and comments. So I take this opportunity to thank all the participants. I especially thank Mr. N. Ram for taking the time to invest his time to share his thoughts. I would like to thank Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy for his very crisp and valid comments which he has shared with us. I also thank all our sectoral committee chairpersons, Mr. Suresh Kalpati, Mr. Shankar, Mr. M.V. Subramanian, Mr. Dr. Thangam Meghnathan, Mr. B. Sriram, Mr. D. Ravi, Mr. Caldwell Velnambi, Mr. Ratnavel Rajan, and the other committee chairs who have given us their thoughts and their time. So with these few words, we come to the end of this program. We would keep you updated about what we do with it and how we go forward. We'll be sure to inform you of our progress. We thank you for your time and we look forward to welcoming you throughout our other events as well. Please log into SICCI.in to keep track of our events, and we look forward to welcoming you soon in the days to come. Thank you so much. I wish you a good evening. Thank you.